Trauma Therapist Podcast, episode 543. All right, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to support and inspire new trauma therapists just starting out on the trauma-informed journey. I do that with my membership community, Trauma Therapist 2.0, my online courses and workshops, and the Trauma Therapist newsletter. If you're a therapist of any kind and you work with individuals who've been impacted by trauma, I invite you to head on over to my website at thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. All right, let's get started. All right, Danette, you ready to do this?
Yes.
All right, I will read your bio and then we'll get going here. All right, so here we go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. I am thrilled today to have as my guest, Danette May. Danette, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So driven by passion and a powerful calling to serve Mother Earth and humanity, Danette inspires people around the world to step up into the true and full expression of themselves. Her coaching, products, and programs have transformed the lives of millions of people, allowing them to live their happiest and healthiest lives. Danette is co-founder and CCO of Mindful Health LLC and Earth Echo Foods. She's also best-selling author of The Rise and Embrace Abundance, founder of the Rise Movement, keynote speaker, high-level executive coach, fitness and nutrition expert, entrepreneur, wife, and mother. And she doesn't sleep at all, right? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
All right. Before we get going here, Danette, share with our listeners where you're from originally and where you are currently, and then we'll dive in.
Well, I was born in a small town called Salmon, Idaho, and then I was raised around 12 till I went to college in Bozeman, Montana, and was in Utah for a while for school, Virginia, both for school, and now my main residence is in Colorado.
Nice. Okay. So look, your bio is, it's crazy incredible, but your story also is pretty amazing. How the heck did this happen to you? Did you create this? Did you get here?
What do you mean where I'm at today?
Where you're at today. I mean, your story about, and what inspired you to walk on this path and this journey. Share with our listeners.
Yeah, I'm going to be super unapologetic about where I am today because I really definitely feel super blessed, but I do know that I co-created this experience that I'm living today of, these businesses, friendships, passion in my intimate relationship, my relationship with my kids, my health, all these different areas that we would call abundant. But it didn't always look that way. And it was because I wasn't living into the truth of who I am. I was living in the realm of what I was taught as a little girl. And so I'll back up like around 8, 9, 10 years ago. My life, more like 10 years ago now, looked radically different. I was a girl that was turning off my intuition. I was a girl that was living into the paradigm of what my family, what I was taught and raised by. Instead of questioning, do I actually believe this? I was just following what I was taught, which ultimately was crushing my soul, was crushing my intuition. I had lost my son. I went through a terrible divorce. I don't think many are pleasant, but this one left me with $47 being a single mom. And I was in a lot of, and I always say to people, worse than losing my son, worse than having $47 and the single mom was this belief that I was never going to amount to my dreams. Me succumbed in this like thought process of I was always going to be a financial ruin, that I was a terrible mom, that I would never have connections, that I would never live out this dream that was in my heart. And to me, that's the saddest part of all of that, was that I was living in this belief system. And so it required me to get from that belief system to what I believe today and who I am showing up today, to really get under that layer of that belief and really step day by day into power, new belief system, a new story. And so that's the work I've been deeply doing, and I'll continue to do.
So, you talked about a lot of things that in and of themselves are, nothing short of traumatic. Losing a child, getting divorced. How did you get over, if I can ask this, or not get over, how did you work through the loss of a child?
Yeah. And I just want to say, a lot of people that have lost children have been drawn to me. And I think we want to come together as a tribe sometimes when you're like, oh, they know how I feel. It's not something that happens overnight. And it's okay to have your ups and downs with the emotion of losing a child. For me, I felt extreme guilt because I remember being in the rocking chair. It was a quieter night. I was just, I was 7 months pregnant. So I enjoyed the moments when he would kick, and I knew he was going to be a little boy. So I was wrestling my belly to get him to kick, and there was no movement. And I had intuition that was like, maybe something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I've looked back on this moment many times, but in the earlier stages of this moment, what I did was I just got up and got busy. I turned off that little voice and I went and got busy. I went and did the dishes. And I don't blame this girl now. And I've really worked on forgiving that girl. But that girl that didn't listen to that intuition ended up going to the hospital, having her son, not coming home with her son, really blamed herself and was in a lot of guilt and just feeling sadness around not listening to her intuition. She knows now why she didn't. And that was the journey she took. And now I know, it took his passing for me to fully wake up, for me to really start to listen and to become more awake in my own life.
You said now why you didn't. Why didn't you listen to your intuition at that point? Because you knew
I sense. So, a lot of us are in relationships that we shouldn't be in, but we don't want to make the hard choice, or we don't want to ruffle feathers, or we're scared of what's on the other side of that hard choice. So we turn off the intuition. A lot of us know we should be eating foods that are a lot more healing, but we don't turn off that intuition. We know to get off our phones, to get out into nature, but if we don't do it, we're turning off that intuition. So by me listening in that moment meant that I needed to turn on all the other intuitions that were filing up, like maybe something's wrong in your relationship. Maybe you don't believe the things you say you're believing. Maybe you don't want to live this life in this home, in this town. So there was a lot of things I was shoving down prior to that moment. And when you're good at shoving them down, when it really hits, you're going to turn it off most likely, and then you're going to deal with the pain of it. And I'm not saying that he passed because of it. I do think everything has its reason. We just get to learn from it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are listening to this now as you're listing those opportunities for us to turn off our intuition. People are going, yes, yes, yes. I myself was going, yeah, 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 yeah. But you did something. Not everyone makes a decision and turns around and says, all right, I'm going to take some action and step up and own. I love this idea of intuition because it really speaks to me, and it really speaks to a lot about what I talk a lot about on this podcast. What did you do? When did you say, okay, I got to turn around. I got to start listening to this?
It didn't mean that I knew that my intuition was off. I didn't know that at the time. Just so everybody listening, it's taken years of me really doing deeper healing work around my trauma for me to recognize why I made that decision then, and why I was turning it off in that really vital moment. There's a journey that you take to really turn on intuition. And it's not that you need, to turn it on. Unless you're listening right now, you're like, maybe I should turn on my intuition more, because a lot of us think that other people have these knowings or this intuition more than them. And that's simply not true. Everyone's born with intuition. Everyone has this access to what I believe is one of the most potent powers that any of us can have, but it gets deadened by a few things. And I'll talk about what I believe quiets and turns off intuition and what turns it on. So I'll talk about what turns it on first. And this is quite universal. I've been studying this for a long time now. And at the time when I was going through my downfall and just really struggling, what I did is I just Googled inspiration. I Googled people that I looked up to that I thought were doing amazing in business, seemed like they had a great relationships. And I was trying to look under the curtain of their life. What made them do so well in business? Why are they so great at this? Some of them deceased, some I'll never know, some I knew. And I found a common denominator. And that was that all of them came from chaos. All of them had hard times. All of them had trauma. And if that's the case, then I was like, cha-ching, I got it too. Like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And the more and more that I coach high level execs, people that you would call celebrities doing it, all the way to someone you will never know her name, there's always this common denominator of trauma and this common denominator of pain. And it's up to us to decide how we turn and use that pain and that lesson and that learning. And so for me, I was like, okay, what are they saying? What are these great people saying? Okay, we all have trauma. Great, I got that. And I was finding these common denominators. And one was quiet time, setting up your morning. Another one was daily affirmations, really truly writing down and reframing all these negative stories or belief systems and reframing them over and over and over again. And the third one was 100% responsibility for the life you are living right now. So at that time, that was a hard pill to swallow. That meant I had to take 100% responsibility for the divorce, for the financial ruin, for the loss of my son, for letting people down, for not listening to my intuition, all on and on and on and on. But I'm telling you, that is where your freedom lies. And those three things are the things that I worked on. And I started to slowly start to turn on my intuition, because then I would get out in nature. I would not pick up my phone as much. I wasn't hanging out with toxic people that were negative. Or people that just don't have somewhat of a limiting mindset. I started really shifting those things, which helped turn on the intuition.
This whole idea of intuition, again, is ringing true for me, because I myself, when I was really young, I had this idea, and I got it from a very specific place, that I wasn't smart enough. And that has stayed with me for the longest time. And I know I'm not stupid, but that it's like hangs over me like this invisible voice, this ghost. Yeah. And it has such a powerful effect still to this day. But you're talking here about empowering ourselves and taking specific actions. And I mean, I feel it too. I feel when I'm not honoring my intuition. And then when I do, it's like a no-brainer. It's like, why didn't I do this? Why haven't I done this? And it's hard sometimes because of what you referenced earlier on, because of what we're taught and what we think and what the societal influences and so forth.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's really rewiring those stories, right? So for you, for example, and I know a lot of people have that story or that lingering, like you called it, a ghost of, I'm not smart, but I have this dream in my heart that requires me to be smart, or I want to do XYZ, requires me to be smart. Can I not do it? And the thing is like, if you come, you don't have to like, so the sale, I said, that's the story, right? It's now rewiring that story that actually I am connected to everything. I'm connected to the greats of the greats. I am connected to the smartest people that I would consider smart. All of our DNA is looped together. I'm connected to every tree, every fiber of nature that is evolving and that has massive intelligence, right? So when you start to go, oh, I'm connected to it all, therefore I must be magnificent. I must be brilliant. I'm just going to learn to tap into it more. And when you change that story, it starts to, and you do it over and over again. It's constant. It's not a destination. Like I think a lot of us think that we heal trauma or we heal a story that it's done. And it's a constant rewiring. It's a constant like reframing and remembering that we are connected to everything. And if we're connected to everything, that means everything lives within us. All of the infinite intelligence, the beauty, because a lot of people have a story, I'm not pretty or I'm not good looking, I don't have healthy genes. All of it lives within you. And so therefore it's there for your taking. It's there for you to grab a hold of.
How did you get to a point where you started believing that? I mean, it's one thing to say, you know, I'm connected to everything in the universe, but it's another thing to say, you know, I have the intelligence of Elon Musk or whatnot. I mean, help me with that.
It's a little bit of mix for me. I do a lot of metaphysical. So for me, every single day, non-negotiable, I'm communing in nature. I believe that nature has a cleansing property to it where I'm able to remember. Here's the thing. A lot of us think we have to go towards or achieve or learn. And the truth is we just have to remember. So for me, nature is an opportunity to remember the essence of who I am. It opens up me to wisdom. It opens me up to intuition, right? It grounds me. I mix a little bit of that with science. So if you were to look into the science of infinite intelligence, if you were to look into the science of cells and the science of, if we were you and I, and there was like maybe 6 others, and we have a unified intention together, we group in our unified intention, we can, and let's say we have this unified intention on 2 different segments of plants. We don't even know what the plants look like. We've just been told plant A and plant B, they're all in the same sunlight, they're all getting the same water, they're the same seeds, but we're going to visualize and intend that plant group plant A is going to grow. We can do this. It will happen, and this will happen thousands of miles away without us even seeing these plants. Now, when you start to study infinite intelligence, it helps you go, oh, this is scientifically backed. This is metaphysically backed. This is spiritually backed. And that helps me embrace it more and to go, okay, there's so many reasons why I know I'm connected to all this infinite intelligence. I just need to now say it and own it and commune with it. So that's when I go and commune with it in nature.
When you first started doing this, were there times where you were like, come on, who am I kidding? Because this was a process for you. Like you said, it wasn't just, you know, tomorrow I'm going to do this. I'm going to believe this. I'm going to be successful in this way. Were there moments where you were like, who am I kidding or what?
At the very beginning, when you're in this evolution, it's kind of like, I can equate it to, because I'm into health, right? So let's say you have a goal of releasing 30 pounds, growing some biceps, getting flatter abs, or maybe even defining your abs. You're not going to do it overnight. And there's going to be times when you're like, oh my gosh, I'm working so hard on this and I see no results. It's going to require, you know, continual effort and you to just continue saying your affirmations, sitting and communing in nature, writing down I am affirmations, right? All these different things, rewiring your story. Like if you have a story that I'm not smart or I'm not beautiful or I'm a financial ruin, writing the opposite of it, reading it every day. So it's going to require you to build up that muscle. But what happens is over time, as you're doing these things, you'll get a break. where you'll start to see, oh my gosh, I just got connected to that person. I remember visualizing and hoping to get connected to that person, and now it's happening. And that muscle is strengthened. That's like one ab pop or a little bit of bicep showing, right? And you're like, oh, this actually kind of works. So writing it all down and visualizing it every day, then you just get more and more of it happening. And where it becomes where you're like, I just got it now. For me, it's not a question of believing it. I can now say it, but know it in my cells. And so for me, it's now this challenge of keeping my frequency in check, right? Now that's my greatest work now, because I know all of this, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen if you're not keeping your frequency in check. And what I mean by my frequency in check is anytime I get triggered, anytime I feel frustrated, anytime I'm angry, jealous, any of those lower vibrations, I've got to quickly shift them to joy, to happiness, to love, to forgiveness. So if I switch it faster, then I'm actually going to start to see more of those manifestations happen quicker. So doesn't mean I'm not human and I'm not going to get triggered, but can I shift it quicker these days versus sitting in it for a day or sitting in it for a week? Because that's what slows down all this progress that you're wanting to see to move forward.
When you are working or speaking to or coaching people who've been traumatized, and they're maybe they're at a state where they're like, whoa, I'm not even ready to get there yet. How do you begin to share this with people like that, with people who've been, granted, many of us have been traumatized, if not all of us, but how do you begin to talk about rewiring the story when they're maybe at their rock bottom, for example, when people are like, there's no way, this is who I am?
This is a really deep question. You're asking me, I'm a day out from hosting 250 women live in Denver at the Four Seasons, and then 100 were on Zoom. These are my high-level coaching clients. And we were working on trauma and releasing those trauma and rewiring those stories. They went and played full out on it. But you said something really interesting. You said your question to me was, how do you help someone with trauma when they're not ready? Or they say they're not ready. And that's kind of the first thing, is you need to be ready, because you have to get to a place where you're like, I want out of this. I choose to work through this. Yes, it stings. And yes, I don't really know how to climb out of this, but I'm willing to climb out of it, because there's a big difference. There are people that are in trauma and they are still wanting to sit in that trauma. They're like bathing in it and they don't really want out. There is almost a power they're getting for being in their trauma, from being the victim. And I don't know how to help those people very well, because you have to have this switch in your brain that says, I want out. And so I'm going to be really real as a coach and helping people. I'm really successful when the person's like, I want and I choose to become free. I just don't know how. Can you show me how? Totally. I can help you. If I have someone sitting next to me that's like, I'm feeling all this, but I don't want out. I don't know how, and I don't feel like I'm worthy of it. And I'm just mad. Then I'm like, you might have to sit there a little longer. You might just have to marinate a little longer, because until it's so painful to be in that spot and you're not willing to say, I'm going to step into something new, show me how. I don't know how I'm going to help you. That's where I want to say to someone listening, are you willing to shift? Are you willing to take responsibility? It doesn't mean you have to know how. It doesn't mean you have to feel empowered. It doesn't mean you have to feel excited or even good about it. You just have to say, I'm willing to step. I'm willing to take on the idea that I possibly created this. I'm willing to take on the idea that I am not the victim, and I am willing to get into a different outcome. Show me how. And that's really the first step.
Just remind everyone, I'm speaking with Danette May. She can be reached at DanetteMay.com. Danette, this is amazing. I mean, this is not just speaking to individuals, people who are listening to this podcast who've been impacted by trauma, but also the therapists and the coaches too, who are going to be listening to this and understanding, I think, the importance of trusting one's intuition, of the importance of when you're not, the difference between when you're not ready and you are sitting in trauma or maybe disbelief, compared to the difference when you are ready and you might not even know how to move forward, but you're ready to move forward. And that's really important for therapists. That kind of, to me, kind of opens the door for authenticity and creativity and vulnerability. Man, I have to say, I love this. Seriously. I mean, this is really what I think is so important, because again, it's speaking to getting to the core of who we are. You know, when you go back to that intuition, it's so powerful. It's just, it's there's something about it. With intuition, it's one of those words we talk about and we kind of like just glide over it. But the power of, because it's who we are individually, right? It's who we are as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Your first book, why did you write it?
Well, my first book is called The Rise, with Hay House, and my second book with Hay House Publishing is called Embrace Abundance. I'll speak to both, but my first book, The Rise, I actually was approached by Hay House originally to write this book. And they asked me, what do I want to write about? And I was like, I have so many ideas. So which I realized that I was in a place that was an opportunity and a massive gift that a lot of future authors would like. One, to be approached by a massive publishing company, and two, to be like, you can write whatever you want. What is it going to be? So I didn't take that lightly. I went into meditation and prayer about it. And my first book, I think, could have been written a lot for me because it was my vulnerable story. I shared about all my vulnerable middle and who I was becoming. And I have to tell you, the scariest part of writing that book was there was two things. One, sharing who I'm becoming, like wanting to share my light of what I was stepping into. It was almost more scary than writing about all my trauma. So that's fascinating as a human.
Why? Why was that more scary?
Because then you're up for judgment. You're up for who do you think you are to create these things in your mind, or to say that you're going to step into these things and you're becoming this. The second thing I was afraid of was hurting people. People in my story. I didn't want to hurt anyone. That wasn't the intention. My intention was that if I were to be vulnerable enough in sharing my story, what woman could I free to be vulnerable and share her story? Because it's in the sharing that a lot of time the healing happens, because then we realize we're not alone. And because that's the biggest thing I also learned at this last event is we all have these stories and these traumas, and we wrap them up in a bubble thinking they're only ours, and that no one would understand, and no one's gone through that, or no one's made that decision, and I am going to be judged and unloved, and I'm never going to amount to this, or no one's going to understand. And we find out that you are not the only one. No matter what story you have, someone's got something similar, and we all just are humans wanting to be loved and wanting to be able to express so we can heal. And that it's in that expressing that we heal. So The Rise was that. And then when Hay House came back and said, want to write another book? We want you to write another. I was like, I wasn't planning on it. And they were like, well, we would love you to. What do you want to write on? And I was like, another one? You want me to come up with you're not going to tell me what I should write a book on? And they were like, we are so curious about how you've created this life you get to live, and health and friendships, relationships with your kids, with abundance and business and purpose and having good times. How did you do it? And people are going to want to know. And for me, we were just stepping into what the world would call the pandemic when I went to write this book. And I was like, oh, more than ever, people need to understand their human birthright being abundant, understanding that just because you have one thing doesn't mean you shouldn't have another, that we need some hope around this idea of abundance. And if people were to claim more abundance in their life, I know what's behind that. And what's behind abundance in your life is a thread of love. Because people that are really abundant in life, what I believe is a 360-degree experience, not just financial, because a lot of people think abundance means financial. Abundance is so much bigger. It's so much grander. It's mental health, it's peace, it's joy, it's amazing relationships, it's amazing passion with your lover. It's, doing things that light you up, not what society thinks should light you up. It's this whole 360-degree experience. So for people to step into that, in which I share small nuggets of what you can do to start to harness it, witness it in your own life, like stepping into miracles every single day, is that currency to abundance is always love. And if we can have more love in our life, and that means love for ourselves, holding that love frequency just out into the world on a daily basis, we are going to become more abundant in all these different areas. And so that's what the book is about, is just the small things you can do each day in all the different areas of your life to claim abundance.
Damn. Nice. I love it.
Thank you.
Danette, Jesus, I'm going to get the book, Embrace Abundance. And I'm not just saying that, I'm going to get it. As soon you had me at Intuition, I have to say it. As soon as you started talking there, I was like, yes, this is what it's about. All right, look, I know my listeners are going to love this. And again, it's about not just, speaking to the people who've been traumatized, because practically all of us have, but it's also speaking to people who are working closely with people who've been impacted by trauma, the therapists and coaches. As we close out here, and I know there's obviously so much more to talk about, but hopefully we can do it again. But as we close out here, share with us the best way to get in contact with you.
Yeah, you can go to my website, which I give out free content all the time, DanetteMay.com, or you can follow me on social at the Danette May, both on Facebook and Instagram. Okay.
And in terms of, and we talked about your books, Embrace Abundance, which definitely I'm going to get, but aside from those, I mean, and early on in this conversation, you mentioned these people that you were following, inspired by, and you found out that there was that common denominator of trauma. But similarly, is there a book or that you would recommend, whether it's on this topic or not, that you want to share with us?
Yeah, there's a book that has really impacted my life. There's a lot. Books have impacted my life. That's why I pay it forward in writing them. But The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks is so brilliant as he describes breaking that imaginary glass ceiling to go to the next level in your life. And he really lays out a lot of the reasons why we have these limiting beliefs, why we self-sabotage, and how to work around it. And, I've put those practices into place, and they've made a big difference in my life as well.
Awesome. All right, Danette, it's a pleasure speaking with you, and you got me going, man. I'm psyched. I'm gonna get off here. And seriously, I love talking to people like you. I really want to thank you for coming on here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Thank you.